Arti, first of all, welcome to you on Filme Shilmy and congratulations on Cargo, as I believe not only is it going to be shown on Netflix, but it's also going to have a cinematic release here as part of the London Indian Film Festival in cinema festival
Yes,
program.
yes. I'm very excited about it. Actually, in fact, this film was made with the intention of a big screen experience. So I just cannot wait for people to watch it because obviously it's a sci-fi spaceship film and it's an immersive experience and also a very intimate drama. So, yeah, so I'm just happy. It's best of both worlds for me as far as London is concerned that they can see it Netflix and they can see it in theater. So yeah, I'm very happy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it definitely covers the main areas of entertainment consumption. So I think you're quite covered on that aspect
Yes.
of audiences
Yes.
viewership and
Yes.
stuff like
Yes.
that. That's really great. So I
Yes.
believe it's
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
debut feature film directorial, isn't it?
Yes.
Wow.
So I'm the writer, director, and one of the producers of the film. It's yeah. So I've been working in science fiction space for around 7 years now, and I had like a, so traditionally in Bollywood they don't make science fiction as such. So I had a tough time getting my stuff made. So I used to make a lot of short films, and that's how I, created my team. Who was passionate about science fiction in general. So a last film that we had made was a 40-minute science fiction which went to Amazon, and that kind of gave us a confidence to work make a feature like this. And it's the first film, so it's very special that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. So the fact that you've obviously ventured into the sci-fi space before, that must have really helped you to make Cargo and sort of bring it to the big screen, right?
Yes. So I have been like really steeped into this genre, consuming movies, books, podcasts for a very long time. So I am really steeped into this genre, and I have seen a lot of films which are also low budget science fiction, and I also saw the best of high budget. At least for Cargo, we referred the highest budget spaceship films to the lowest budget to, come up with whatever we could do in our budget to make the world look convincing, because that's the first step when you make a sci-fi, that the world should feel real, and that is the biggest first challenge for us to cross, and then the rest, the story and everything follows. But yeah, if the world looks unbelievable and tacky, then it will completely detach the viewer from the experience. So yeah,
Hmm.
that was our biggest challenge, and we worked very hard on it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's interesting because it's almost like a Hindu mythology angle meeting Star Wars in a very interesting way. Like the
Yeah.
whole concept, like it kind of unites these two very wonderful concepts together. So where did you get the
Yeah.
idea from of or what inspired you to use Hindu mythology as a backdrop for a
Yes.
space story?
Yes. Yeah. So basically, because I'd seen so much science fiction and I'd really seen that there are no science fiction films from India, I wanted to be sure that my first film, which I was sure it's going to be science fiction, had to also be very Indian. It should feel like it can only be made in this subcontinent. And, and see, for example, if we try to copy any of the Western Hollywood sci-fi films and make it in India, it won't work because the cultural context of us Indians is very different. Like, we think about our mothers, father, brother, what is, so we
Hmm.
are like so tight knit as a culturally, we are very different. So, and also I felt like, India also, we have a subcontinent has a very rich our folklore and our mythology is very rich and very magical in itself. So this film in a way for me was a throwback to all our grandmother kind of folklore those kind of stories where
Hmm.
they talk about all these magical stories, but at the same time they try to weave in some philosophical things about life, and so this was my idea, like, derive from our own folk tales instead of from the West. And this was how it came in. And I always like in a way creating new worlds. I like to tell stories that sort of throw some light on what is the meaning of life, what is the purpose of life, and that was what I was trying to say through this film. Yeah.
That's very
So
interesting, and I'm really glad actually. I think it's quite a novel idea. I don't think anyone's ever really thought of it. But you were mentioning that you have to really portray this world convincingly. So besides, the narrative, and besides all the other sort of other aspects in terms of the actual storyline and the base of the film, but what else did you have to do to kind of make sure this world looks convincing as a filmmaker in terms of like the visual effects and stuff like that?
Yeah, so actually, what I realized while we're making science fiction, and actually, because we are making it the feature film length for the first time, I realized that it's very important to do the shooting. 30 days is the smallest part of the whole making process. Our pre-production was very long, which involved a lot of researching. It involved a lot of graphic
Mhm.
design. It involved, so there was a lot of like these companies were created, like, and what their logo should be, and what should their structure should be, because that world will bleed in even if you not completely understand. If you see there are various companies in the film, if you don't understand their structures, but at least whatever bleeds in should feel logical and should make sense, so there
Mm.
was a lot of preparation where we were building not just the visual things, but also mentally whatever we were constructing about that world, that was through the radio shows that was flowing in, so that was there. And in the post, the VFX has to have a consistent language throughout. Like, we
Mm.
cannot say that, oh, a spaceship is retro, now VFX will be like Minority Reports, which is like touch screen. Everything has to be consistent. So if you see, a VFX was also very retro. We used 8-bit font, the old
Mhm.
Tetris kind of, so things like that. So we were following design principles, like, we were going back to those design principles and designing those things. Yeah. And yeah, getting right in the details, because
Mm.
I knew that we never had the budget for large scale shots which could be beautiful, but I thought at least the details. For example, the food tray. If you ever see there is a close up of a food tray, you will actually see the details of the calories and this and that.
Ah,
So we got
ah,
the details right as much as possible.
okay.
So we worked at that level. Yeah, very micro and yeah,
So
yeah.
you weren't pretty much carried away by the glamour and by the opulence of the genre itself
Yes,
because of
yes,
the
yes, yes,
budgets. You had to focus
yes,
on the
yes.
details.
Yes, that's true, that's true. And there's always this thing where everybody says that, hey, what if you had more budget, you could have done more. But if we are starting a new genre, we will never have like this 1,000 crores thrown at us. Like, we have to just accept our challenge and just live with it and innovate within that, and that's what each of my team had, like whether it was my cinematographer Kaushal Shah, or my production designers brilliant Mayur Sharma, or my VFX person Zanish Mehta. All of us knew, or the guy who designed a spaceship, they knew that, okay, we don't have budgets, but that's okay. Now we have accepted this limitation. Now let's just go ahead and solve the problem, like just make it better, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that is
like
true.
that.
And I think regardless, I think budget or वो सब कुछ एक बहाना होता है. I think like
Yeah.
if a film is good in its essence, I think budgets and everything are very secondary, to be very honest.
Yes,
If you're a good
yes,
storyteller and if you can manage to tell a good story within the duration of the film, that's what counts, I think, the most, right?
yes. I think we were like extremely sincere, and there was like a lot of purity with which we made this film. There was this genuine purity with which we made it, and that was true. And my film boasts of around 6 debuts. So there were 6 people who had who made their debut with this film.
Mm,
And normally in sci-fi you have experts who have done like 10 sci-fi films who come in, but we were like these people are just some of them fresh out of film school, but
right.
because of that they were bringing in so much sincerity to the process. And as a director, or so many times I would see that, okay, there are gaps or whatever, but like they just more than compensated with like the intention. It was so strong and so beautiful that the energy of the set was very beautiful. Like when we were
Yeah.
shooting out every process, it was very beautiful. Yeah.
I can totally understand that. I even love the cast as well. I think it's just so wonderful to see Shweta Tripathi and of course Vikrant Masi headline the
Yeah.
film. I think they're two such, I don't want to use the word underrated, but I think they are such incredible actors, and I'm just so happy to see them get spaces on the forefront, literally spaces, pun intended.
Yes.
So
Yeah, so I was very lucky because, Shweta, I knew from before I made the film. She had just come to my house randomly with a writer friend of hers. And I was like, that's an actress in my house. Like, what is she doing? I know her. She's famous. Like, and
yeah,
she was like, so we were discussing sci-fi as genre because her friend wanted to do sci-fi at that point, and I was just talking about various things, and I was just listening to her, and I understood that she's so intelligent. And then and she's like not just emotionally intelligent, but also in terms of understanding the technicalities of the world like that we were creating. And so was true for Vikrant. They both are extremely sensitive and very intelligent people, and they were getting all the nuances, all the layers of the film. And I think it was their conviction, that they believed in the
Mm.
spaceship, because when we are shooting, we have like 50% is set, but there's 50% green screen. But they believed in the whole conviction, and they were working with so much joy. And I think they also exude a certain, the sincerity, and and certain niceness, like their faces and their demeanor in general, because they have worked very hard in their life. When I see Vikrant's journey from from for 12 years, he has been like every day working so hard, like you his technique is so evolved, like like as a director, it's so much joy to work with someone who has such an evolved understanding of his craft. So it was so much fun just working with them. Like, yeah, I think they are the real magicians of Cargo, frankly speaking. They were carrying the film so beautifully.
You mentioned as well, like sci-fi. It's a genre which is still not explored as much in Bollywood, like you mentioned at the
Yes,
beginning.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think कुछ गिने चुने films है हमारे Bollywood में जो sci-fi को
हाँ.
के ऊपर है. Why do you think it's taken so long for this genre to kind of reach the surface? Where do you think we've gone wrong in the past, perhaps, in terms of this
Yeah.
genre, exploring this style of cinema?
Yeah, I think the benchmark for sci-fi films in India has always been this big budget Hollywood films, and and they're like this sleek CGI, and they're like that kind
Yeah.
of design. So it's always scary for producers to risk so much. So there's always this assumption that a sci-fi is a very expensive film. I think that is one thing, and the second thing is because then nobody started it, we never had benchmarks. Like for example, for Interstellar to exist, this 2001 Space Odyssey existing, like we never had someone start it and start doing things, like and
Mm.
I just tell people when I was making the film, I was like, at this point, like our responsibility is to make a good film, but also to make a film that people feel that, okay, you can make sci-fi, it's not too scary to make a sci-fi, like for producers to have faith in sci-fi as a genre, so that
Mm.
was important for us. But yeah, that's always been there. That one is, of course, we never had benchmarks, nobody started it, and then the culture never picked up. But the second thing is
Yeah.
also a lot of Hollywood narratives of sci-fi are based on, if you go back to the literature of sci-fi, it's by Philip K. Dick, and so they're essentially very rooted in Western way of living,
Mm.
and but we need Eastern stories. Like our Bollywood stories are so emotional. It comes back to the same thing that instead of worrying about the villain, the hero worries about what is my elder brother thinking? Is he getting hurt? Like our emotions are very different. Like
Yeah.
so to culturally move. So essentially now that there's so much sci-fi coming from east, like from Asia, so much there's so much sci-fi coming from Africa, which are culturally similar to us. I'm very sure there'll be, and there are like good sci-fi writers also coming up in India. So now we will start seeing stories which we can relate to. So it's not just about like the world, but it's also about the emotions that we play in within that world. I think now they'll be coming up, and now I think there should be more of that.
I think on a personal note as well, I think sci-fi perhaps for me is one of my least favorite genres. I think it's because there's so much technology involved, and
Yes,
it becomes where technology becomes the sole focus of the film, right? Like in a lot of
yes,
the
yes,
West films, like you mentioned, it's like अगर technology ना हो तो मतलब वो एक sci-fi film नहीं है. Like it's almost
nahi hai.
it's very like subjective, and that drives
Yeah,
the whole film. I think there's always that skepticism as well, right? I think
yes,
within the
yes, yes.
audiences.
Yes, and that's always there because the producers also say कि there's this very common dialogue जैसे कि वो रिक्शे वाले को भी समझ में आना चाहिए. So the moment you say sci-fi, they said उसको कैसे समझेगा, like
Uh,
but that's the whole idea, and that's what in Cargo I wanted to make sure that when I show a spaceship, I want to show the most regular person, the most regular auntie in the spaceship, and that's why the whole idea was like that. You have to see, you have to just stop being scared of a spaceship, that okay, I will never, we have to show that all of us will reach that spaceship. That was the whole idea of Cargo, like
yeah.
and yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. But
yeah,
I think Aarti, just extending questions about yourself. I mean, we'll be touching a bit more as well on the sci-fi genre, but I think it's a great time at the moment for cinema because I think women, generally, actually in life, are taking center stage everywhere now. Like
yeah.
whether it's politics, whether it's literature, whether it's films, whether it's music. How does it feel to kind of making your mark, making your directorial debut in such a phase where you not only is it an empowering time, but it's also a time where uh, audiences are open to widespread cinema and cinemas made on various styles. How does it feel to kind of be making your entrance at this point?
No, no, it feels fantastic because genuinely had a very long struggle trying to make my film. In fact, that's the reason I made Cargo was that I was like, that's it. Like I have to make something on my own, even though I don't have the funds. Like I'll collect my friends and I'll do it. But there was genuinely a lot of struggle, because it was not just that I was woman, but I too many things not
Yeah,
working for me. The idea was an outsider, and not just me. And everything. So, but I think at some point I like that the now things are changing, and now there are people who are approaching me that yeah, we want women perspectives, we want women stories, because I think this diversity in every field, even science fiction, that for that matter world over, is a very male dominated genre. Technology is a male dominated domain. So I
yeah.
remember our film got selected as one festival called Fantaspoa, which is in Brazil, and
Mm.
he said that in 16 years, for the first time, a female science fiction film has come.
Wow.
So we felt like, oh my God, really? And that's true. And they said that the beauty for us is that all the science fiction films that we have shown in our Fantastic Fest has like very distinctly male, and they were representatives of women. Women in science fiction are always models, hot looking models. They're all fantasies. But here we have like real girls. We have the stories also have this. It's a very sensitive. So it's a
Mm.
sensitive film. It's an intimate drama. At the end of the day, there's nothing spectacular in Cargo. It's genuinely a very intimate story.
Mm.
And for them also, and I think it's important for us to show those kind of stories also.
Yeah.
Use science fiction as a lens to tell something that is nuanced and that is more close home with, that's close to our heart. So I think it's important that yeah, that diverse voices are coming in, yeah, and
Oh
they are
yeah.
being encouraged, yeah.
Very well said. Very well said. I think perhaps if we talk about empowering figures in Star Wars, it's only recently, for example, in the West. Not trying to compare, obviously, Bollywood with Hollywood, of course not. But I think just trying to show the reflect on the changing times and the emergence of such stories. Like in Star Wars, we recently had the new main protagonist with John Boyega, who was more like of a woman. Like it was more of an authentic story rather than going with the glamour. Even Princess Leia, for that matter,
Yeah,
in Star Wars. So
yeah,
it's interesting how we've always had these stories, but they were kind of like I guess overcoated with the whole technological and glamour and the
yeah.
splendor of the actual filmmaking rather than the actual stories themselves.
Yes, yes, true, true, true. Yeah, yeah, that's true. And I think that's why diversity is important in telling stories, because suddenly you see something very different that you've never seen, even though science fiction has been made for 100 years. That's important. That suddenly a new voice suddenly gives a new lens. So I think that's very important. Like for all of us to grow, to learn from each other. Yeah,
Hmm. So,
yeah.
so I presume science fiction is definitely going to be a genre which you would like to focus on a lot in your
Yes.
filmmaking career, right?
Yes, 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 yes. I love magical, and I love inventive stories, and I love telling stories about worlds that don't exist. I love world building. Like I had to be held back, like because I like putting in 10 details in a story. So I love all that. So I want to do that more, and I want like us, all of us, and I was fortunate because one of the festivals our film was shown in was India, and a lot of
Hmm.
Indian young creators saw it, and they reached out to me with their science fiction stories, and I was amazed at the kind of science fiction people are writing. But they felt that they would never get a chance to make it. But at least just seeing one film, they feel that okay, whether they that they can make it. It's possible to be made. It's possible that things are changing in India, and I know that it will change now with there are so many platforms that are coming in that are giving other alternatives other than theatricals for films to be seen, and which is important because that also allows some diversity in the type of stories we are telling. So I think I'm very sure that the science fiction's future is pretty good in India, and I
Hmm.
really want to dedicate my life. That's my mission, just to tell magical stories. When someone asks me what's your life's mission, I said it's just to tell magical stories for people. And I hope, you know,
Mm.
just use them to illuminate people's hearts and people's lives. So yeah, that's what it is.
No, absolutely. And I think it's good because it's something new. I think what's missing a lot, especially in Hindi cinema right now, is freshness and creativity. I think at the moment, I think anything that's even relatively new or uh, that's fresh, I think we all jump at the chance of watching and consuming that, and I guess
Yes.
celebrating that more, even if that film isn't that great. But because of the fact that it's new and it's
Yeah.
fresh, people will still appreciate it because of that's how I guess I don't want
Yeah.
to say the standards have dropped, but I guess that's exactly the sort of phase that the industry is in at the moment as well.
Yes, yes, true. And actually, you know what, like trying anything new, there are so many struggles involved that are unimaginable. Like the kind of budgets we are making science fiction in right now. People don't even make a normal film in. Actually are making films in such shoestring budgets. We are like, you know, critical decisions. We are cutting scenes because we don't have money. So you know,
Mm.
that's why we need championship. We need people to encourage us, because just to get till here took, like, you know, lot of blood, genuine blood and sweat, like, you know. So that's
Yeah.
like you know, so it's like important that, you know, people do appreciate something different, because it's genuinely, because filmmaking is very expensive. That is the
Yeah.
biggest challenge. If it was cheaper, we could have easily tried, experimented more, because everything you want to put costs a lot, like, you know, and you can't deny that, like, you know, you can't just say, oh, okay. So it's
Mm.
like, yeah, so I think that's why we need that. If people make new stuff, we need champions. We need people to, like, at least go and watch it, like, if not champion, at least watch it, like, you know, give it a chance. Maybe it'll work, speak to
Mm.
you, you know, or whatever, give feedback so that we can be better, whatever.
Mm.
So yeah, so
So,
essentially that.
but going forward, in your sci-fi works, what sort of narratives and concepts are you keen to explore?
So I do like, in general, I have this whole obsession. I think like to always, I have always ruminated over the themes of, you know, what is the purpose of life, because, you know, and why it is, like, you know, I do believe in this whole chaos theory that, you know, that, okay, we will probably die and we'll all end, like, you know, but despite that, what is it that makes life so hopeful or beautiful? So, you know, I've always been obsessed with the themes of, you know, life. And by basically examining death is when I get a sense of, you know, what is the beauty of life is, and which was the theme of Cargo. But, you know, there was another screenplay that I had written, you know, about
Mm.
before Cargo, which also almost had the same theme, where we were examining what is the meaning of life, what is the purpose of life, what is it, like, you know, what is loneliness and things like that. So, you know, essentially very human emotions and very philosophical emotions is something that really attracts me, like. So yeah, it has always been that. And I think for a lot of creators, your films are normally roughs of the same theme, like. So yeah, so in general, like, for a lot of creators, you know, like, essentially, your stories are roughs of the same themes, and mine has always been like that, like, you know, what is the purpose of life, you know. And so these are the things that I you know, explore through various mediums, like, so spaceship was one of the medium. I can, you know, you can have any story, you can discuss parallel universes, but you can understand that, okay, what define your choices, and, you know, how your choices define you, like, things like that. So I've always been trying to examine very human emotions through the themes of sci-fi.
Do you know
So
what would be
yeah,
very
that
interesting?
will always be there.
Do you know what would be very interesting? And thank you for sharing that with me as well. I think it would be so fascinating to see an anthology film based in space, different stories of different people in space
Yes,
or beyond Earth. I think that would be very, very cool. So just a little, I just thought I'd just drop that in there as a as a little idea if you ever
nice,
wanna
nice. Definitely,
like that would.
definitely. That's a good. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah. I love space. I love that whole idea of exploration. You know, and I love the loneliness that comes with exploration. I also love the profoundness of, you know, you know, taking that profoundness of exploring, you know, being the person who wants to explore, like, you know, just
Hmm.
that, you know, dealing with uncertainty, you know, I love that also. So yeah, I think that's totally up my sleeve, like what you
Definitely.
suggested.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh God, I'm waiting for to see more from that. But on a final note, Arati, because obviously the film will be premiering as part of London Indian Film Festival's in cinema program. What do you hope to achieve from this exhibition?
No, for me, it's just that it's a film made with a lot of, as I said, like a lot of sincerity and a lot of love. And I just hope that when they see this, uh, I mean, the idea is when the film begins and to the point it ends, it basically shows, snapshots of lots of lives. And maybe by seeing all this, by seeing the whole, the immigration of post-death transition services in space, or seeing all this, they get to basically ruminate over their own life, or just think about their own lives and just value it, that how beautiful it is, like because
Mm,
we in general are so obsessed with, like, we are obsessed with wrong things, we're obsessed with like the bigger goal and this. But beauty is in, like,
the
small things,
details.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And in transient emotions, in fact, something that is very momentary can be something very beautiful, and that's something that has to be valued, because life is just snapshots of these beautiful, delicate emotions. And it's not that this goal that, hey, I want this. It's just the small things, like just appreciating this beauty is what I want them to take away from the film. Yeah.
Great. And post
Yeah.
Cargo, have you been working on anything else?
Yeah, we're working on a screenplay, and that we are submitting to various labs, and it's very exciting and very interesting. And it's a screenplay actually we worked very hard on, like for 1.5 years. So very hardly. Yeah. So I mean, and we want to submit it to labs, and let's see if it gets selected, and then we'll be making that soon. So let's see. Yeah,
Well,
very soon.
hopefully that when that gets approved, that will definitely call for another conversation. And
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
actually very, very looking forward to watching Cargo. And I just want to
Thank,
congratulate you um,
thank you.
first, because I think what you've done is it's a path-breaking, move for cinema. And I think well done on you. I've not seen the film yet, but the fact that you've done it, I think, deserves applause. So a huge
Thank you
congratulations
so
and
much.
wishing you all
Thank
the
you.
very best, Arati.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
But
Definitely.
Arati, take care. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Really lovely talking to you. Really
Oh,
lovely
thank
questions.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you
Thanks.
so much. Thank
Yes.
you. My
Yes.
pleasure.
Take care. Yeah.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye. See ya.